The most pervasive problem that I
Yes.
see in purpose-driven businesses, they end up kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
In a lot of traditional settings, people run away from difficult conversations. When you have a difficult conversation, it's well done. The result is always more love.
Meet Laurence Sarno, the former corporate marketer now devoted to the solidarity economy by serving purpose-driven, mission-led organization. He leads CoLab's Culture Circle, Marketing Circle, and serves in the Business Development Circle. Also provides user research services.
With the cooperative model, no one can tell anyone to do anything, which I know a lot of people have a very hard time getting their head around that. Because we have no managers, we have roles and responsibilities, we became disillusioned with working in a hierarchical corporate structure, having no say about what we worked on.
What was it about the cooperative model that made you want to trade in your traditional corporate career for equal ownership in a values-driven tech cooperative?
I and most CoLabers are here because
Welcome to the Purpose Profit Shift, where real stories about bold shifts illuminate how we can create a new economy. I'm your host, Rachel Bernier Green, social entrepreneur, activist, and founder of EJ Consortium, a finance consulting firm designed to help purposeful businesses change the world. To our listeners, let me ask you something. What happens when 33 people spread across 4 continents all have equal say in running a tech company? No CEO making final calls, no board of investors pressuring for growth at all costs, just workers, designers, developers, project managers voting together on every major decision. Sounds impossible? Like a recipe for chaos? Well, it's not only possible, but it's been working for 15 years at CoLab Cooperative, and the companies they build technology for aren't small-time experiments either. We're talking about the Apollo Theater, Cornell University, Seventh Generation, and cooperatives serving immigrant communities and fighting for workers' rights. My guest today, Laurence Sarno, is one of those equal owners. He joined CoLab in 2023 after working in traditional corporate structures, and now he is a part of their culture circle and helps drive business development. He's living proof that you can have ownership without hierarchy, growth without extraction, and profit without compromising purpose. So today, we're pulling back the curtain on what a worker cooperative actually looks like, how decisions get made, how they balance democratic ideals with business realities, and whether this model could work beyond tech. This is a conversation about reimagining what business ownership can be. So let's talk. Laurence, thank you so much for joining me today. I've been so looking forward to this conversation because we have a blast every time we talk.
yes, we do. And I've been looking forward to it as well, Rachel. It's been a joy working with you, and I'm absolutely happy to share. We like to say at CoLab that we progress one mistake at a time.
I love that.
So, anything that we can share that keeps another cooperative from making the same mistakes we do or have in the past. No, we will keep doing them. We will keep making mistakes, of course.
I mean, if we aren't making mistakes, then I get concerned that we're not trying anything new.
Anything new. Yeah,
Yeah, or
exactly.
anything worthwhile. So I
Yeah.
think that's a good place to be. So, Lawrence, I want to start with something bold.
Okay.
CoLab Cooperative
Yep.
operates on the radical premise that the people building the technology should own the company. So you
Yes.
joined CoLab back in 2023 after
Yep.
years of working in more traditional corporate structures. And now you're working in the culture, marketing, and business development circles as an equal owner alongside 33 other workers spread across 4 continents. So before we dive into how CoLab works, I'm curious, what was it about the cooperative model that made you want to trade in your traditional corporate career for equal ownership in a values-driven tech cooperative? What did you see that others might be missing when they're looking at an opportunity like that?
Okay, well, I'll come at it from the opposite direction, Rachel. I and most collabers are here because we became disillusioned with working in a hierarchical corporate structure,
Yeah,
having no say about what we worked on,
right?
and often for companies with unethical practices, okay? Being asked to market or sell products we didn't believe in, having no real voice in the company, and putting in long and often very stressful days so that owners and shareholders could profit from our work. Okay. That's what I was disillusioned with. And that's why most collabers are here. And none of that, not one of those things is true at CoLab.
I love that. It's great when the grass looks greener on the other side because it actually is.
Because it
That
actually is.
reality pan
Yeah.
for you.
Exactly.
So some of our listeners are not very familiar with the idea of a cooperative. So let's demystify this a little bit. So, can you walk us through what it actually means that CoLab is worker owned? What does that look like in practice, on a Tuesday afternoon?
Okay. So first I should say that currently 21 of our workers are member owners
Okay.
and the remaining 12 are mostly working towards membership.
Awesome.
So if you're working 20 hours or more a week, it takes about a year to become a member owner. And very occasionally someone just wants to do the work. They like CoLab, they like the flexibility, and they're not interested in becoming a member owner, but that's really rare. So what it looks like on a Tuesday is that most people have more than one role, okay? So and that's owners and not yet owners. I think my colleague Santiago was elected to the board about, 4 days after he became a member because
Jumped right in.
well, because he had already been, he was already in the people circle and he was already in the marketing circle and he was already, helping out with operations and business development. So, so when he ran for the board, people went, yeah, no brainer, you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. So in other words, you can become a WordPress developer and be on the board. You can be a project manager and part of the people circle, which I should say people circle is roughly equivalent to the HR function in a corporation.
Yeah, can you talk about the circles and kind of how that works?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We follow the principles, not perfectly, but getting more perfect all the time. We follow the principles of sociocracy. And one of the things that makes sociocracy work, and one of the things that makes CoLab work, is that we function by consent. And you'll hear me say this like a
Yes.
number of times. Okay. In sociocracy, that does not mean you have to love the solution that we agree to. You just have to think it's safe to try. Okay.
And that's
So,
an important point, I think, for our listeners to remember because
yeah.
that's going to come up when we talk about how we started working together.
Yes, exactly. So each circle has its own domain, so we meet at the beginning of each year and we say, well, this is what our areas of responsibility were last year. Do we still love those? Do we want to add new ones? Do we want to, and basically that's our job. We made it up for the year. And that's our level of responsibility and areas of authority. And it changes. It obviously changes and grows throughout the year, but it's a good place to start every year. That's what a circle is. But you also asked, in addition to what looks on a Tuesday, like you could be working with 3 different groups within CoLab all on the same day or more. But it also means that working in a sociocratic cooperative also means that no one, at least no, I have to make it clear. Not all cooperatives are non-hierarchical. Okay.
Yes.
We chose to be non-hierarchical. Okay. So what that means to us is that no one can tell anyone to do anything. Okay. Which I know a lot of people have a very hard time getting their head around that because we have no managers. We have roles and responsibilities. We have no managers. So, for instance, any collabor for any reason can decline to work on a specific project. Okay? Or no reason. You don't have to say. You can just say, "Nope, don't feel like doing that." So, a phrase you hear around here a whole lot is, "Would you be willing to?"
Yes. I have picked up on that.
We have this client, they're doing this, it's gonna probably take about 15 hours of your time per week over a 3-month period. Would you be willing to be on this project? And you
And
can
I
say,
feel like this is a great lead in to our next question because I think that a lot of people listening are probably wondering how on earth do you get anything done? And I think a big part of the reason that that the sociocracy model is able to work for CoLab
Yeah.
is because of your culture. And so you had team members across 5 continents. Now you have team members across 4 because
Yeah.
people moved. But how do you maintain cohesive, cooperative culture and democratic governance when you're
Yeah.
literally operating across the world?
Right.
Especially because that's so key to getting anything done within
Yes.
this non-hierarchical model.
Well, how we get it done is with a lot of love and goodwill.
Yes.
Okay. That's the biggest thing. Now, how that works is, so for instance, right now, all of our clients are in the United States.
Okay.
And but so people who don't live in the Americas, because we have people in South America as well as in North America. We have people in Canada, US, Colombia, and Brazil. So people who don't live in the Americas work kind of strange hours. So we Europeans, I'm in England, Tomasz and Yuri are in Slovenia. Not too bad. We start around noon or 1, we end around 7 or 8. The Indians work much later.
Yeah.
Okay, and to be honest, I have no idea how the folks in Taiwan and the Philippines do it. No idea. I mean, somehow they make their lives work, and that's great. So, one of the things that's super important is that when we have all collabor meetings, okay, and this is part of how we build the culture, which I'll talk to you about later. When we need to make a decision that's a member owner's decision, we have all member meetings. And the way we conduct them is always using the same principles, okay? And one of the most important things about CoLab is that we give trainings on nonviolent communication. The lead of our people circle, Colleen, is absolutely a master of this kind of thing, of teaching and facilitating nonviolent communication workshops.
Can
So,
you explain what that means? Because I think some people are not familiar. They may feel that some of the ways that people communicate with them are violent, but have never framed it that way. So can you talk about what it means to communicate in a nonviolent manner?
well, first of all, the most importantly is you lead with empathy, lead with compassion. Okay. You listen a lot. You reflect back to the person what you've just heard them say in order to confirm that what you heard is what they actually meant.
Right.
Okay. There's a huge focus on taking responsibility for the words that you're saying and not putting them on the other person. You don't
Yeah.
say, well, you got angry when I said this. I felt uncomfortable. I
Yes.
I felt uncomfortable when we had that interaction. Can you help me, come to an understanding about what it was you needed and wanted out of that conversation?
And this is just fundamentally different
Yeah.
from how people communicate in so many settings, especially in traditional corporate
Yeah.
settings.
Yeah.
And so I think, have you ever, when you have people that are kind of coming in, and I guess this was you because you transitioned to collab, not too long ago.
Yeah.
How is that transition when you are learning to kind of adopt these principles that are so necessary
Right.
for doing productive work at collab when they are in many ways the antithesis of what makes things working a lot of other environments?
Right. Well, a lot of people come to CoLab, and I was definitely one of them because we'd been working on these practices all our lives.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I came to work at CoLab specifically for business development and marketing because that's what CoLab needed. My heart is actually in the culture circle.
Yeah.
You know, maybe someday when I've made myself redundant, I can just focus on
Yeah.
when I've made myself redundant in business development and marketing. Does that help? Does that flavor of what it is?
It reminds me something that our director of strategy and growth at EJC often says that a brand should basically be a magnet for attracting the right type of people and not just, customers, but also
Right.
team members.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when you were discussing that, you know, CoLab is basically attracting the type of people who are intentionally coming here because they want to work in an environment like this,
Yeah.
and they have been using these principles, and they have found that these principles maybe did not give them success elsewhere, and they knew
Yeah.
that it was a matter of fit, not a matter of what they were doing was fundamentally wrong.
Right. Yeah. I think there's some people who come to CoLab and have no experience with nonviolent communication and no experience with the cooperative model, and they fit right in. Okay. And then there are people who come to us knowing exactly what a cooperative is and having belonged to cooperatives before, and I think when we spend a lot of time. Our hiring process is probably a little longer than many corporations because we're looking for that person who is going to be, and which is really weird because I don't say like us, because you've met
Yeah,
tons of our members by now,
I have.
almost all of them, and wildly different from each
Yes.
other. But what we're looking for is somebody who's gonna thrive in this environment.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've met our co-founder, Ralph, right? And Ralph, sometimes when we just can't make a hiring decision, we ask Ralph to meet the final, say, 2 candidates, because Ralph is like the bottom line at CoLab. He is our culture personified.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's a way that you are protecting the culture of
Yeah,
CoLab because it's
yeah,
so integral to how you operate.
yeah.
And so are there other ways that you would say that culture and building culture is different than in a traditional hierarchical company?
Oh, yeah. So I mentioned before that the people circle is roughly equivalent to the HR department in a
Right.
corporation. Okay. So we have to do all the legal and financial and compliance stuff that, any other HR department does. But for example, we have happiness check-ins. So if any collabor is struggling, all you have to do is you ping one of the 4 of us who are trained to do happiness check-ins, and we will sit down with you, find out what's up, repeat back everything we're hearing. We don't rush to solutions. We
That's
ask the
so hard.
person. No, it's really hard.
Yeah.
We ask the person, we ask them a lot about their feelings,
Mhm.
where the trigger points are that are causing them distress. Ask them first
Yeah.
what might work for them to fix the situation, and then once that's all finished, then I often go, "I have some ideas, would you like to hear them?" You know? And sometimes people say, "No, no, I don't need any help, I just needed to talk about it and I'm fine now." And then sometimes it turns into a series of meetings where we go, "We've been trying this, how did that work out?" You know,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. Also, in a lot of traditional settings, people run away from difficult conversations.
Yes.
We run towards difficult conversations,
So necessary.
because in my experience, when you have a difficult conversation and it's well done, okay,
Yes.
the result is always more love. So one of our colleagues, he's actually our newest member, but a year ago when he first joined us, maybe the first or second client meeting we were in together, I said something that he really, really thought, "Oh, Lawrence really shouldn't have said that." So almost immediately, he, we use Slack for our internal communication.
Mhm.
He Slacked me and he was like, "When you said that, that made me really uncomfortable." And so I said, "Great, let's hop on a Zoom call right away." And he explained it to me and I was like, "Oh God, you are so right." And I knew immediately that he was gonna fit in
Yeah.
because he didn't stew over it. He didn't,
It's
let it.
so much more productive to just
Yeah,
have the hard conversation.
like, right away. You
Yeah.
know? And that was just so reassuring to me. I was like, "Oh, yes, he's going to be fine here."
Yeah. It reminds me of, I can't think of the title of this book, I think, by Kim Scott, and when she talks about radical candor,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, that's exactly it. That's one of the values that we, try to protect here at EJC, because having those hard conversations and moving through them
Yeah.
instead of, like you said, stewing on it and just sitting
Yeah.
in it and building up resentment, which
It's
is necessary for survival in some spaces. But
right.
it's phenomenal that that is not something that people have to hold on to or mask how they are feeling
Yeah,
to be a productive member at CoLab.
exactly. In fact, the more we give each other feedback, the more productive we become.
Yes.
And I mean, personally, I love constructive feedback because
Ooh,
it allows me not to make that mistake again.
right. I
You know?
always tell my team if I just needed people to agree with me, I can go talk to myself in the mirror. It's like a
Yeah.
lot cheaper, a lot faster. Like everyone is here to bring a different perspective. And when those perspectives sometimes clash, constructive criticism is it's like compost for ideas and for
Yeah,
aliens, it feels like.
exactly. So yes, I agree with everything you just said.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I hope this is something that people take away from this conversation is that constructive conflict is not something that we need to run away from.
right.
Now, I want to pivot a little bit because I remember one of the things that conversations that we've had several conversations about this now about how you grow a values-based business without compromising those values. And especially because you had, spent time in business development, even though that's not really where your heart is, you have been one of the people that has been tasked with this and kind of what the biggest tension between growth and staying true to the cooperative model has
Yeah.
been. Because I know
Yes.
when in some of our conversations, I think this was one of the areas where I introduced some constructive conflict
Yes.
into challenging some assumptions about the way some things are done and whether or not they are
Right.
really supporting the values that you guys hold.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't call it a tension, Rachel, but I think the biggest limiting factor is that we only serve clients who are aligned with our values. Okay.
Yes.
And so, as you know, we have food banks, social justice organizations, some universities, organizations that combine the arts with social activism,
Yes.
like Apollo Theater, and economic justice organizations
Yes.
like yourself. Okay, so this means that our pool of clients is smaller than it could be.
Correct.
Okay. And one of the most limiting factors, I think, which I was going to talk about later, because one of your questions sparked an idea in me, is that when you're trying to survive, and there's a lot of overhead, because people are paid for their internal time here.
Yes.
Okay. So you
Right.
get paid for an hour Drupal development. You get paid the same amount for an hour of being in the culture circle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that is a lot of overhead. And we have fallen into the trap of not making the investment of internal time on processes that would lift us out of survival.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I'm
that is
saying?
so common. It
Yeah.
is so common.
Yeah, I think I'll leave it there. But anyway, that's
Feels
how
like
we
you have some more thoughts bubbling, even if we were gonna come to it
okay,
later than
so
agreed.
so, all right. So, here's the thing. When you and we first started working together, we didn't have a financial model under which we could thrive,
Mhm.
okay? Very, very much day-to-day survival,
Yeah.
okay? So, every time we entered a financial code red. Okay, which is it's a number we use to say we have below X in the bank or whatever,
Yeah.
it's a number we use. Every time we entered a financial code red, we had to stop working on everything but billable work. So that means the investment we were putting in to say building we have a custom software that we're building for ourselves called the Hub, would simplify and automate so many of our operations and compliance and things like that, okay? And we actually stopped working on it
Yeah.
because we had to focus on billable work, and that is so counterproductive, okay? So, I think that's probably where I was going with that idea.
I think I would venture to say that this is the most pervasive problem that I
Yes.
see in purpose-driven businesses, is
Yes.
that they end up kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place this way, and then they're, making decisions because, like you said, they're kind of in a scarcity mindset because they're just trying to survive. So when I come in and start throwing questions around about, "Okay, but what does thriving look like?" And
Yeah.
are you on a path to get to thriving? And if not, like, what do we need to change to get on
Yeah.
that path?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, I'm spending so much time trying to keep my head above water. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, it takes people
Yeah.
time to, because I do this with my team too. Every time a team member starts, I work with them to develop a thrive number
Yeah.
of what they need to thrive in their life. And people have the hardest time
Yeah.
because they're like, in all of my decades of living, no one has ever asked me, what do I need to thrive?
You're right. No, right. We're too focused on survival.
Yeah. And so we get into, questions about with businesses, especially around pricing, especially when you are in the purpose driven space. Because when we talk about growing a values based business without compromising values, pricing is one of the areas where we often get stuck because we are pricing in ways that we think are values aligned, but then they are actually preventing us from thriving and from living our values to the fullest.
Right. I remember how shocked I was. Like, okay, like a fish doesn't know water, right? So in
Mhm.
other words, a fish doesn't understand the concept of water.
Right.
That's how I felt when you said, one of the things I've noticed is that you give discounts to organizations without their asking for it.
Yeah.
And because it's like, it's this kind of company, they must not have very much money. So let's
Yeah.
give them and I was like, well, yes. What? I
Right.
mean, we shouldn't be doing that. We should wait for them to ask for a discount. Really? It was so much my ground of being that it literally
Yeah.
hadn't occurred to me, Rachel.
Because there are so many ways that we can find ways to deliver value at price points and different ways we can find ways to make things work for clients
Yeah.
without automatically cutting ourselves off at the knees. Because what a lot of times people don't realize is when you're making a decision to offer that discount, that we're cutting off the margin that can support the development of that internal work that you were speaking about.
Right.
And no one
Right.
intentionally wants to do that.
Right. No, it's just to have someone say something that was literally, oh, you're right. It was just literally, it's just like, never even occurred to me. And here I was co-leading business development. Oh, wow. Anyway, yeah.
And we jumped in and were able to, make some progress there. So, Lawrence, I think that's a great lead in to discuss some of the projects that we worked on together. So, can you share some of the challenges that CoLab was experiencing when we first started working together? And I know you've touched on a few, but if we can take a deeper dive there to lay the picture out for the listeners.
Sure. One of the things that goes by the wayside when you're trying to keep your head above water is strategy.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Because
we
who
go,
has time for that?
exactly. Exactly.
Feels.
And so we had gotten into the habit of not defining goals, not defining key objectives for the year in advance of creating the budget. Okay.
Which makes it very hard to reach consensus. Like you said in the beginning, we were going to come back to that a lot.
Yep, exactly. So, it's like, well, this is our budget for this circle last year, and for these reasons, we're gonna say our budget for this circle for this year should be this. Okay. Without gaining consensus among all the circles about what the objectives were we wanted to achieve during the year, and does the way we allocate the budget align with what we're trying to achieve?
Right.
Okay. And so it's very hard to reach your goals and feel success in your strategy working out when you didn't have agreed upon goals and when you didn't have a strategy,
Right.
you know? So it's like at the end of the year, the only way we knew if we were winning was, did we have some profit we could share?
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
yes, okay, we won. No.
So
Does that cover it more fully?
absolutely.
Okay.
So for our listeners, we that's kind of when EJC entered the picture because we Had met some people from CoLab at a cooperative conference last year, which was phenomenal. And that was kind of our introduction to each other. And thankfully, we continued to connect. And as they were working through this budget conversation, they brought us in to kind of help. And then we said, actually, before we can really have a productive conversation around the budget, we need to step back and ask ourselves these questions about what does it look like to thrive and what does our strategic framework say to get aligned before we can move forward. And I think that this brings us to like a really important point because when everyone's an equal owner, how do you avoid decision paralysis? Because you have to reach that consensus. And
Yeah.
what was going on when we first started working together was that because there was no unifying strategy or definition of what thriving looked like,
Mhm.
all of the circles were kind of creating their budgets independently, and it was impossible to get to a consensus to have a unified budget for the organization.
Mhm.
So, can you talk about, moments where it feels like democratic governance was slowing you down and what the kind of lessons learned from that are?
Okay. Well, again, I have to come back to governing by consent.
Yes.
Okay. I think the issue is never that governing by consent slows us down
Thank you for framing it that way.
because we have to do it this way to remain to ourselves.
Right.
Okay.
So that in and of itself is not the problem.
No,
Yes.
the problem was the lack of strategy.
Right.
Okay, overall corporate strategy, all of us. As soon as you said, "No, we have to start here," everybody went, "Yes, Rachel's right. We have to start there." And that was no problem. But when you govern by, and I want to make sure that that you understand that governing by consent is not the same thing as taking a vote and the majority rules.
Yes.
Okay? If we are having a board meeting, and our board changes every year. We have 7 people, and every year we have a new board election. And so but 7 people is still a lot,
Yeah.
okay, to get consent. So we need every single board member needs to consent on a proposal,
Right.
okay? And as I was saying before about sociocracy, you don't have to love it, you just have to think it's safe to try. But sometimes we do have these things where one board member says, "No, I can't live with that." And another board member says, "I can't live without that." And then one of us will say, "Okay, well, when you say you can't," for instance, example, we were talking about a clause in the handbook,
Yeah.
the CoLab worker handbook. And one person says, "This clause must be in there." And the other person says, "Nope, I can't live with that."
Yeah.
And then in this case, our wonderful Colleen stepped in and said, "Okay, which part of that clause do you think is the most important and you think has to go in there?" And we said to the other person, "Which part of that clause do you really hate?" The other person said this. And within less than 10 minutes, we had agreed with on the new wording of the clause. And both of them said, "Yeah, I can live with that."
And
Okay.
that's the way through.
And that's the way through. And the other thing that I would say is that every person has a voice
Yeah.
in CoLab. Everybody has an equal voice in CoLab. Okay. So now they assign, 7 people every year to make decisions. Okay. Because if every decision in the entire company had to be agreed upon by all of the member owners, that would be problematic. Okay. So it's kind of like 7 people step up every year and go, "Oh, okay, I'll take it on. Not that I really want." Because it's a lot of work. Let's say you were an observer, so any collabor, whether they're a member or not, can observe a board meeting, okay? If you're an observer, as we go around and get everybody's opinions about a proposal that's just been proposed, okay? You even if you're just an observer, you will be asked, and you will have the same amount of time to give your opinion as the board
Yeah.
members, okay? Does that make sense? Yes, it
Yeah.
takes time, but no, I don't think we could be collab and do it differently.
And I absolutely agree. And I love that we're having this conversation because I think sometimes when people hear about cooperatives, and especially when they hear about the idea of governing by consent, then they think of a situation where that would cause conflict, and then they just throw the baby out with the bathwater. And they say,
Right.
obviously this idea can never work, but it's we're dealing with kind of some false constraints there because
Yeah.
it just means we need to approach things differently, not
Yeah.
that the model is fundamentally flawed.
Right. Exactly. And, it took a while to get here. And as I say, we're always growing. We're always evolving. We are looking for ways to do it better. Okay. One of the things we're kind of committed to is sharing any processes that we think work with other
Yeah.
cooperatives so they don't have to do that. Okay. They can make their own mistakes.
Yeah.
But so for instance, we're about to put in the footer of our website, we're about to publish our code of conduct, our communication standards and best practices,
I
our
can't wait to read that one.
that took a while. Our accountability process, okay? In other words, it's just super important to us. We get calls from a lot of, like, groups of people who are thinking of starting a cooperative,
Yeah.
and we always make time for them. Always, because these people are gonna be our future partners. We're gonna
Hmm.
be referring work to each other, you know?
Yes,
Yeah, and it's super important to us. So I think that answer your question sort of
very much
how
so.
it works to govern by consent.
Yes. And I think it does. And I hope that it's giving people who are listening a lot of food for thought, especially because a lot of these principles are things that whether or not you are a cooperative, that you can adopt into your business models to create, thriving workplaces.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk about a moment, and you've alluded to this before about when, stakes felt high, where CoLab had to deliver under pressure for mission critical projects. So, like you've talked about being in the code red
Yeah.
while staying true to your principles. So, can you talk a bit about maybe an example of a time when you were in the code red and how you all had to
Yes.
navigate through that?
Yes, I think the first thing that pops into my head, Rachel, is during the pandemic, okay?
Yeah.
So, it was not did not match our values to lay people off, okay? And work got thin on the ground
Yeah.
at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I wasn't there then. The processes were still in place when I got there in 2023. And what they did was everybody took a pay cut across the board. Okay. And then as we reached certain financial milestones, everybody got this percentage of it back, and
Hmm.
then this percentage of it back, and then this percentage of it back. And by the time I'd been here a year, everybody was back at full pay.
I That is something to celebrate. And
It,
everyone, because you're in a cooperative, everyone was able to understand the financial implications of these decisions. So no
yep.
one was in the dark. No one was wondering, is my job safe or stable or not? They
Yep.
knew that collectively we're in this together. They knew collectively that we're in this together and that we are going to work our way out of this problem.
Right. Exactly. And I think that was sort of bonding in an odd way,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. It's
it
kind of like
is.
it
Yeah.
was so noticeable that we're all in this together. you know?
Yeah. We'll have to trade war stories about
Yeah.
how we handled a similar code red type situation. But to stay focused on collab,
Yes.
let's talk about how, because you work in business development, let's talk a little bit about how collab thinks about winning business
Yeah.
differently than a traditional agency, and if the cooperative structure changes how you approach sales.
Okay, yes. A lot of the things we do, traditional corporate tech agencies would think are nuts. Okay? Like, why would you do that? So, I'll give you an example. Some of our clients are food banks, as you know, and they all use this kind of megalithic corporate software to manage their systems because there really isn't their operations because there really isn't an equivalent in the open source software world.
Yeah.
Okay. All of them came to us because an unethical agency built their instance of this software for them, made a lot of the modules custom when they didn't have to, because the base platform had those modules come standard.
Oh
Okay.
boy.
And the custom ones were always breaking. And that not just the modules, but one would break and that would make another break, which would make another break. Okay.
Just
So
systemic dysfunction.
exactly. So we only build what the client needs.
Right.
Okay. Not what will make us the most money. All
Yeah.
right. We build rugged systems that are easy to maintain. So that saves our clients money in the long run.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I mean, obviously we offer support and maintenance, but it so lowers their support and maintenance costs over the years, or it's
Right.
easy for them to go to another vendor if they need to switch vendors for whatever reason, because we built the software to be easy to maintain and support.
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever possible, we train our clients' in-house staff to be self-sufficient. Okay. We design things so that they can maintain them. If they have an in-house technical team, we design it so they can do that.
Yes.
In a lot of traditional agencies, they would say, "Oh my Lord, you are leaving money on the table." And we go, "Yeah, we are."
I mean, it depends on how you look at it because
Yeah.
from the client perspective, I know we talked a little bit about how EJC has helped support CoLab, but one of the ways that CoLab is supporting EJC, because we are also a client of yours, is that CoLab is helping us to build out some systems for our bridge program. And this is the very approach that we have gone through. But because of that approach, then we just expanded the projects that we were working on and we started another project to have you all, help us with a rebranding effort and website. And so what it has done for us, because you guys have been, because of the way you operate and how upfront you are and how everything throughout the process has been around how do we make this a solution that works best and serves your organization and your clients best,
Yeah.
it's just turned us into a longer term partner where now we
Right.
have like a list of, projects for like these are the things we'll be working on for the next year as
Right.
clients of CoLab.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we love is that our clients tend to stick around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you talk
And
about that? Because you have some very impressive metrics, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but that's one of the things that I love hearing about your story.
well, recently we were writing a response to an RFP, a request for proposal, and they asked for a list of, they had asked for a long list of clients in various fields and what we had done for them. So, we filled out this whole long thing and in different industries and different, and when I finished writing it, I went, "Oh my God, every one of these clients is still a client."
Yes.
And one of the ways we do that, which I really love, and sometimes it's just support and maintenance, and every now and then they'll bring us in for a little project. Can you build a module that does this? That kind of
Yeah.
thing. But one of the other things we do, we call it team augmentation. Okay. It just works incredibly well. So we do this with a lot of organizations, but the one that's on our website, so I know I'm allowed to talk about it, is the University of Vermont. So we redesigned their website, which was a massive task because they have like 400 departments at
Oh,
the
wow.
university, 400 plus departments at the University of Vermont, every one of which has its own microsite.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And every one of those microsites has their own content developers and contributors and people who upload content to the
Right.
website. Okay, so you can, and none of them had any consistent style guides. None of them had any,
Oh, boy.
So anyway, so we did that. And the relationship we've had for the past few years since we quote unquote finished the project, of course it's never finished, it's always growing, is when their in-house web team doesn't have time to do a major thing like upgrading from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10 or whatever, in other words, it's a small team. So whenever they're big project and they don't have time to do it, they bring us in. And one of the ways that team augmentation also works for another one of our clients is that whenever their head of web development wants to her own team to skill up. Okay. Team augmentation means we work together on the tickets. We don't do it all ourselves. Okay. We use our, ticketing management system for tasks, and we assign ourselves some, and the client assigns themselves some, and we work together. So whenever this particular client wants her new people to skill up,
Mm-hmm.
she'll bring us in on a team augmentation process where we and the client will build the thing together. Um,
I love that.
so you see, so in other words, it's a way of injecting not just more hands, but more skill, you know.
Yeah. And that is, I think, a great example of a client project that exemplifies what CoLab is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so the work created meaningful social impact, and the cooperative model and approach that you all take made the outcome better. And you ended up with a long-term client who, is probably going to continue to refer people to you. They're going
Yeah.
to continue
Yeah.
to work with you, which is a beautiful thing.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I remember that moment when I realized that all those clients were still clients. I remember I just got a bit weepy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because it's awesome. That is the turnover, client turnover in more traditional firms. And this is one of the places where I think we often see that we're not, there's not a trade off between purpose and profit, where they actually can mutually reinforce each other,
Yeah. Yeah.
because operate in integrity with how you are working with your clients, that they tend to stick with you longer. You tend to have less turnover. They tend to
Yeah.
prefer more people to you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
client
Mm.
acquisition cost goes down, lifetime value goes up. From a,
Yep.
purely business perspective, these are great metrics, but it happens because of how you guys operate in a values aligned way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. And there's one thing that really makes working for the kinds of clients that we do different. And it
Mhm.
it came home to me this year, particularly because the social and political climate has
Right.
suddenly gotten so mad that you might be tempted to just give up, say, I can't affect this,
Yeah.
right? I have no power whatsoever. I can't affect what's happening. But the kinds of clients that we support really do get us up in the morning, because I am making a difference. I
Yes. And
am
it makes
contributing to
huge
supporting
difference.
the clients who are doing the frontline work,
Yes.
you know, the clients who are doing election protection,
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest differences working with CoLab than working for other agencies, which I've done in the
Yeah.
past, is that
Especially in this moment in time, the
exactly.
buoyancy that it gives you to do
Yeah,
work that matters.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, it's invaluable because we,
Yeah,
are in dark days, and some days, that's what helps get us, through the day.
exactly. It's like, well, if we don't support their rapid response hotline, who will?
Right. Yeah. And just thinking about the catalytic impact of the work that you're doing,
Yeah.
yeah, it's huge. So one of the things that I definitely want to touch on today is just thinking about, as a worker owner, you share in profits and responsibility.
Yep, yep.
And can you talk a little bit about how that changes your relationship to the work, about how you think about pricing, profitability, or saying yes to projects because you are an actual worker owner and not just an employee?
Right. Well, the main thing that it changes is that if you see something wrong or you think something needs to be improved, it's your job to help fix it.
Yes.
Okay. Because each one of us has to think like the owner, okay? Not an
Right.
owner. If I think, "Oh, I'm an owner of this company," then you're not taking the full responsibility
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
for the company. Every single one of us has to think like the owner,
Right.
okay? And compare our behavior or what we're about to do or what we're about to say is like, would the owner of a company say that? You know,
Right.
keeps us from pointing fingers at each other and going,
Yeah,
you know, you get the idea. It's like,
definitely.
why aren't you fixing this? I don't know. Why aren't you? You know?
Right? And then in circles and nothing gets done.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
what would you say is the most surprising thing that you learned about the co-op model that you didn't expect or couldn't have known that someone from the outside looking in wouldn't have known?
I had no idea how much emotional and intellectual overhead and
Mm,
proactive work
mhm.
it takes to build more love, more community, more
Yeah.
connection, more goodwill, happier workers.
Yes.
That was really surprising to me
Yeah, I can
because
imagine.
if you just like to do your job and let other people make the decisions, you're gonna be very unhappy at a cooperative.
Right. Not the place for you.
It's like, "Why are you asking me?" Because 'cause you're the owner?"
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really it,
So
the overhead.
love the way that you framed that as emotional overhead. I love that terminology.
Yeah.
So, as we're wrapping up this conversation, and there are all of these powerful shifts happening within CoLab,
Yeah.
where do you see CoLab in 5 years? And and do you think that maybe we're on the verge of a real shift in terms of the worker cooperative movement in these political and social I feel like I don't have a strong enough word to articulate, but in this moment in time.
Yes, okay. Well, the where I see CoLab in 5 years, what I would like to see in CoLab in 5 years is that with your help, Rachel, I see us moving from scarcity to abundance,
Yes.
okay? I think that's
Yes.
probably the strongest thing we're all aligning behind right now.
Absolutely.
Other things about growth are interesting. For instance, I have no idea what the right size is for CoLab.
It's a great question. Oh,
No idea. I don't know
yes.
whether we should, or whether we should even be focusing on growing our membership. We just don't know. 15 years and we finally got 33 workers. Is that the right size? Could we maintain what we have if we had 50? We don't know.
There's a great book called Small Giants. I think it's by Bo Burlingham. I don't have on my
Okay.
glasses, so I cannot see on my bookshelf. But that,
You can put it in the show notes.
yes, that book, he talks about what the right size is for a company and how we can come to that conclusion, and
Yep.
that, growth just for the sake of growth is not always the right answer. But
No.
the fact that that's a conversation or a thought that you're even thinking about is such a shift. First started talking to you. And
Yeah.
so that just like made my soul sing that you're thinking about, growth is we're definitely going to grow. And it's a matter of what is the right size
Yeah.
so that we are being intentional about that growth
Yeah.
instead of saying,
Exactly.
are we going to grow? How are we going to make it? That's a completely different conversation. And I love that
Right.
that's where your head's at.
Yeah. Well, you're helping us. Because it could be for all of us to thrive as human beings,
Yes.
50 is too many. It could be maintain the same level of communication. We couldn't maintain
Mhm.
the same bond. With your help, we're going to enjoy finding out.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to that journey.
We partner with a lot of other tech cooperatives, okay? Because each one has their specialties, right? We will happily refer out a prospect to another one of our tech
Mhm.
cooperative, partners if we think it's a better fit for the
Yeah.
client, okay? We used to be as a tech cooperative, when we would go to cooperative conferences, we used to be the exception. We were a tech cooperative. Now, tech cooperatives are definitely becoming mainstream. The number of new partners that we've gained in the last couple of years is just it's wild. I mean, every time we go to a conference, we come home with 1 or 2 new tech partners.
And
S
I
so I
think
think
that that
I think
is
it's shifting.
huge.
I think it's
I'm
shifting.
so excited to see that shift in tech and across the board as people are realizing that there are so many models to do business, that we don't have to stick to the, shareholder capitalism model, that is not the only way to do things, that we have
No.
options.
Yeah. And the more conferences we go to, because, we create platforms for cooperatives to do their business. Like we've two clients that are cleaning cooperatives. Okay. And we get, so in other words, people, usually women, usually immigrant or underserved communities, okay, have never had any power or authority in their lives at all,
Yeah.
and now they own their own business,
Yes.
okay? Every single one of those people will every time we go to a conference, people say, "Oh, you're the people who built Up and Go, right? We wanna have a cleaning cooperative in our city." Or people say, "Well, could we do the same thing for food co-ops?" Or
Mhm.
could we do the same thing for, home healthcare workers?
Yes.
And our answer is always yes. I think it's massively shifting in all areas of work.
I agree. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Lawrence, thank you just for pulling back the curtain overall and showing us what can be possible when you get the ownership structure and culture right. And for our listeners, if you're sitting here thinking, I want to learn more about CoLab's work, or maybe my organization needs to work with them, here's how to connect. You can find CoLab Cooperative at colab.coop. That's COLAB.coop. Their website showcases some of the incredible projects that they've built for mission driven organizations, and you can see their approach to tech for social justice in action. And to connect with Lawrence directly, you can find him on LinkedIn. He's actively sharing insights about co op culture, worker ownership, and building businesses that prioritize people over profits. And if your organization is looking for a tech partner who truly shares your values, whether you need a new website, a custom app, or a platform to scale your impact, reach out to CoLab. We are working with them, so I can speak from firsthand experience that you're in good hands. They focus on working with social justice organizations, co ops, B Corps, nonprofits, and educational institutions who are adding net good to society and the environment. So, this episode is exactly what the Purpose Profit Shift is all about, proving that you don't have to choose between building a thriving business and creating real change in the world. And CoLab is living proof of that. So, if this conversation resonated with you, here's what you can do. Subscribe to the Purpose Profit Shift wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got episodes dropping regularly with more visionary founders and change makers who are reshaping how business gets done. And if you found value in today's episode, leave us a rating and a review. It helps other values driven leaders find us. Until next time, keep leading with intention, scaling responsibly, and building businesses that matter. I'm Rachel Bernier Green, and this is the Purpose Profit Shift.